You know, I've never been quite this. I've never been quite this upfront before, but I'm reaching a point now where I don't think what I'm saying even sounds insane. I've always believed that we need to be very hardcore, very elitist, and oftentimes we need to go to the extremes, most people, to protect what we believe in. I'm gonna do a sound check. Steal it. Why is the audio so fucking bad? Oh, here, I'll turn this down. Let's try it again. Okay, that does sound better. Test. It's not great, but yeah, I could do that. Okay. So I'll probably just pause that for a second. So we now live in a time, people have been saying this would happen for years, and it did, where men would become nihilistic, black pilled kind of doomers. Now, there's only two ways people are going to go from here. One is they become so black pilled, they become these unfuckable, I mean, in a good way, unfuckable, tough, resilient, just cannot be fucked with. Um, hardcore men, right? If you feel heartbroken by women collectively, that's not the whole point of this video, but it's a part of it. If you feel heartbroken by women collectively, surely you're so black pilled and you don't give a shit. Your life should be ascending drastically, exponentially, right? You would think that would happen. But what we see instead is the narrative of men, right? Standing up for their rights. It's kind of a hijacked stage show now. The black pill idea has been popularized, but with anything being popularized, it becomes bought out and kind of a psyop. It's true, but even the truth has kind of become a watered down commodity for consumption. That's why I stay away now from, I wouldn't say I completely avoid, but I tend to limit how often I watch these channels because they're saying things that everyone is deep down thinking, yeah, that's fucking true. A lot of women are really self absorbed. A lot of women are this, that. But I want to take it a step further. No, I don't just think a lot of them are self absorbed. I don't just think a lot of men are self absorbed. I think most men and most women want good men and good women dead. And by good, I mean people of value, not good in a nice guy way. The idea of conservatism now is a complete fucking joke because all it is now is some people saying Hail Hitler and some people saying they're anti white and Jewish. No, I'm not making this shit up. You have people who are defending other pedophiles in public media. You have channels that are saying they're goth, that are saying they stand up for white culture and American civilization, more or less, to preserve the goth subculture that is not entirely, but definitely strongly, established within many European cultures. That's a no brainer. That sounds good at face value, protecting goth culture. But why the fuck are we on the conservative side? Because I obviously am right leaning, but I don't believe in the bought out bullshit. Why the fuck are we siding with people like Andrew Tate? who promotes a religion of Islam that, I mean, we know what the Quran promotes. So does the Bible, but the Quran's even worse. They want to molest you. Why is a guy like that in the manosphere? Why is he accepted on social media? Why is he being accepted by white Westerners as an alt-right? No, fuck him. Andrew Tate's a pussy. I don't know how good he is at fighting, although I would like to find out the hard way someday, but obviously he's just a famous faggot, so we never see these people in person. So I don't really care about him specifically, but obviously what he represents and stands for is dog shit. But it wouldn't surprise me. It wouldn't if any of you, if you actually train hard, got stronger than Andrew Tate and could fight harder. Andrew Tate's bench isn't that impressive. I don't know how good he is at kicks. I heard he does. Anyways, we're not going to get into it because he's just another puppet. We don't want to continue reacting to distractions the media throws at us. That's why we have to avoid the masses now and avoid the road, because it's so psychologically fucked and obviously fucked that, even if you play into the extremist doomer black pill role, that's become another niche. That's another form of marketing. The idea of being the Justice Batman figure is logical, but unfortunately, people are going to see that as marketing because people see stupid shit and they believe that is reality on any side. What it does piss me off, though, my main point here is people are looking at Sneeko, a pedophile, straight up, full on pedophile Sneeko, and using him as a talking point for the Conservative Party. Or people look at Andrew Tate and promote him as an idea of the manosphere. If you're still doing that in 2026, you're a fucking cunt. Straight up. And unfortunately, there are a lot of men who are doing that, who are using Andrew Tate and Sneeko, who are Preds. Well, I don't know about Tate, but his Quran says so. This is the woke right. Now, I'm not saying I believe in the traditional Nazi right either. I more so believe in white Roman paganism, although my beliefs are definitely going to lean more German than Jewish, if that gives any of you an idea. Strongly. But obviously, again, even a lot of Germany, a lot of the televised German media, right, has become a hijacked narrative in the West. Nowadays, it's like, yeah, people say offensive things. Kanye says offensive. That's all a distraction. Most people do not and will not give a shit about protecting our race because they are fucking cunts. Just plain and simple, left, right, up, down. It's that simple. You know, it's that simple. You don't have to be a Nazi to say, hey, I want to preserve my subculture. But a lot of people nowadays really are that radicalized and just have sentiment against their own race. This isn't the point of the whole video, by the way. But when we talk about things like men and women behaving a certain way, I'm surprised people's biggest concern isn't the future of our culture, first and foremost. Regardless of what side you're on, I'm surprised people are more concerned about calling you or labeling you a faggot if you disagree with them on anything than they are concerned about protecting their borders nation. I'm really surprised. It's more normalized to hate somebody for their orientation than things that actually completely dismantle a culture. Not to say that, LGBT hasn't been used as a puppet or tool in many instances to destroy the West, but focusing on that and solely that. I understand some people are like, well, I don't like them because they don't procreate life. But I also don't think most people of any culture should be procreating. I think most humans all around need to stop for a second, reflect, rethink. Well, women can't do it. Women don't have the luxury of that, but men do. So men need to stop for a second and think and really take a fucking look at their gender collectively in the mirror and realize, maybe we need to really reflect and fix our own. Because before this whole manosphere thing, before MGTOW, before Black Pill, because Black Pill is now really mainstream in a lot of ways, it is sadly. And before all that got bought out and became a psyop, and I really do believe these content creators who are saying this stuff, I think they believe in it, but I also don't think they give a shit about the future of their country. Because these same people are quoting horrible people as talking points for their conservative views. And I'm just thinking to myself, there are so many people you could quote. Why the fuck would you quote Andrew Tate if you're not a part of a staged narrative? People hear this stuff and they genuinely get offended at just the names. It's not the names, but the fact that these people, I do believe, are deliberately playing everybody in the media. I think they're playing you and I. I think they believe what they're saying, but they're still playing you and I for profit. They're force fed through the algorithm. And it's not that what they're saying is untrue, but the fact that they can still say the truth but make it marketable and still use it to sway anyone watching. So a lot of these people are just saying things nihilist like, but nobody's sat there and asked, does that actually change anything? I'm not saying everything has a solution that's instant. I'm not saying everything has an easy solution, but it feels more like these people just want to say true things but never find a solution. And call it venting, I understand, but I don't think the intent here of any of these subgenres of our algorithm of these content creators, I don't think their intent is to make people stronger people. I don't think people bring up the black pill to betterment. There's truth in the black pill. It should be discussed, but it should be discussed with the intention of improving or strengthening these men rather than, oh, women this, women that, nihilism. I think there's truth in that, but how the fuck are men going to handle that? How the fuck is Gen Z and after going to handle that? I think these quote unquote men should be stronger, should be going into the gym with a 100-pound vest on, punching bags. And if any woman disrespects them, fuck you, cunt. Is how these men should act to Gen Z women. That's what these men should be doing. That's what I'm doing right now. Actually, going to do today later on. You know, not because I want to be a dick, but because I understand that these people collectively don't have my best interest and want to see me fail. That's why I train harder. That's why I'm so apathetic now, openly. But this doesn't come from a place of hate. I just know what I love is almost dead because this current subculture, well, it's not almost dead. It's dying and it's getting smaller by the day because what's happening collectively is stomping out anything of difference. But, anyways, so I'll talk more about how I think all these sides, especially these far right sides, are actually hijacked psyops. It's not to say that there's not truth in it, there's a lot of truth in it, but it's being warped and twisted. And even a small misstep, small error fucks us up. And I don't think this alt right pushback is going to save America. I do think there needs to be some kind of alt right push. Yes, absolutely. But this, if narratives as extreme as white nationalists can be hijacked and used to serve something completely against its own larger interest for money's sake, then we're fucked. The only thing that could work now that hasn't been tried and tested, that needs to be done authentically and not become a sold out commodity, which I almost guarantee it will be, is alt-right spirituality that isn't Christian based, that emphasizes our culture's values, but still believes in our race's betterment and future for the West. And I feel like even that is going to become sold out and pussified when that hits mainstream media. Because becoming black pilled is a step towards a few different outcomes. One, you become spiritually corrupt, darker, left hand path, and you better yourself. Two, it just leads people to suicide. Most people don't want to take the first option because they can't handle it. Most people are fucking snowflakes when it comes to even the black pill. And even those who can accept the black pill, one is a snowflake because they're offended of the idea of accepting there's truth in it. The other is a snowflake because they accept the truth with it but do nothing with it. If you're black pilled, you should be training at a really intense level because you recognize how fucked reality is and what you have to do to oppose it. If you're a Satanist or further, now going into the left hand path, because once you're a nihilist, if you acknowledge anything of higher power existing, you're going to understand that God is fucked and something opposing it must be true. But then those same black pilled men, you'd think, would understand that women represent that opposing force to that God. So what do? Revert to Christianity or go to Satanism. The black pill should be an opportunity for people to look deeper at nihilism and actually ask themselves, so what the fuck is nihilism? But I'll be back. So if you're anything like me, you'd come to the conclusion that nihilism is very true. It's very dark. And what society really needs to function collectively is not just a masculine figure, but a dark masculine figure. Because a dark masculine figure would be fiercely loyal, but wouldn't take shit from any traitors, basically, and would kill them. There wouldn't be these mind games. We wouldn't be giving rights to people who want to fuck us over. We would just see the treachery for what it is, and you're dead. You play mind games, you're dead. If men even think you're playing mind games, you're dead. Now, on the same end, right, because playing mind games should just be illegal. It's lying. That's what it is. We've legalized lying. Giving women rights is one thing. Giving them the ability to lie, to do stuff like this, to basically be the cause of men's suicides, and then them to be happy about it, hoping they kill themselves. Yes, I believe women want that. I believe they especially want it from men who are outcasts. And I think most of them in Gen Z actually spend quite literally all of their time now, everywhere they're at, trying to make men feel a certain way to basically make them kill themselves emotionally. Because men are the ones who are going to kill you with the sword in hand. Women are the ones who are going to try to manipulate you and destroy you psychologically so you kill yourself, basically. That is what we've come down to. Most men are bitter, jealous, undeserving of living, and most women are manipulative cunts and whores. This may be really cruel to say, and a lot of people aren't ready to hear that. And even if people did hear that, what would their solution be? I think for knowing how fucked up people are, my approach to it is much more rational than most people. I think by the time this information is realized by your average dumb fuck who isn't meant to understand that level of thinking, but then again, if you're too dumb to accept reality. Why are you alive? And that's the cruel truth for most men and women. They're so dumb now. The truth would literally make them off themselves because they don't have any intense measures to fight against, you know, the psychological warfare they're in. And this is me included, right? In some ways, I am that way. But I know that I have extreme passion, extreme goals that I want to fulfill. So my inclination to fight it is a lot higher, and I have much better means of doing so. Most people don't. So you wake them up to the black pill, that's just the beginning. What happens when you wake them up to the spiritual filth of our world? What are men and women going to do? Become witches and do witchcraft and Satanism? Okay, probably. But even then, they're just going to become the same demons they hate. You know, this is really where we're at because human nature is inherently fucked. Idiots who can't handle information have the internet to supplement that information. So they're going to see it whether they like it or not. And then a lot of people on the opposite end of it are like, don't say that, don't. But it's true. It's not just true, it's the sky is blue. Everywhere you go nowadays, the majority of men and women are trying to fuck with somebody, are kind of intrusive to somebody, or are trying to be. That is the truth of things. You know, even these guys who are talking about the black pill on the internet, are they doing that because they're actually black pilled or because they feel rejected by a woman? Do they genuinely even hate these women or do they just want their approval? You know, and that's a harsh question to ask. For me, some of these people could have become something much better and could have been. 10 to 20 years ago, I might have actually liked some of the people I despise right now because maybe they wouldn't have been so horrible. I'm not saying I would have, you know, seen eye to eye with them, been able to have complex conversations with them, but maybe I would have liked them enough as friends. Now, people that I could have seen as friends 20 years ago, you know, if I was in my 20s 20 years ago, are people now who just seem completely repulsive and irredeemable in every way, shape, and form. To me, those kinds of people are a lost cause to begin with and a waste of time. The internet only made that obvious and gave people free will to choose, and it showed their true colors, right? Apple is the forbidden fruit, it's the brand and the phone, and that's just a figure of speech, but it's also kind of a literal thing. Not to say that people shouldn't have certain knowledge or technology, not at all. I'm not one of those like traditionalists who's afraid of innovation. No, no, I hate most traditionalists who blame the ability to have some. But it's definitely something society wasn't ready for. And I don't know. My personal views on humans are maybe humanity was a mistake or it wasn't properly introduced into the world. By that I mean, as far as creationism and humans go, it had to happen, but the way it's happened has it's humanity is a fallen angel. It's a failed experiment. It's a shit creation. That's basically what humanity is now. It had potential. It could have done well. In some ways, it still can and will, but that's not because of the majority of humans. That's because of the few exceptions. Humanity is pretty much a traitor and a fallen angel. If you really want to go down to the core mechanics of it. So humanity now becoming nihilistic, and it's not surprising. What is surprising is how it's become a shitty imitation of itself, acting out as the nihilist or rebel. To me, the black pill is the inevitable. It doesn't even necessarily have to be called the black pill. I mean, you live in a physical world where if there are rules, there are restrictions. If you drop a knife and it's near your foot, it's going to cut your foot. Modern humanity, in some ways, isn't even as black pilled as it is sensitive to stuff that is just true. So if you say stuff like that to people, nowadays they are kind of so pampered they will take offense to that because they have never had any true risk or danger or confronted it. So trying to have a conversation with someone now about stuff that's seen as black pill, well, maybe it's not even black pill, maybe it's just obvious shit, but people are so sensitive they can't handle that. And I don't mean sensitive in an aware sense. I mean sensitive in the just say how evil people are and people instantly get depressed and it's like, well, that's just literally what we are born into. I mean, you look at history and philosophers like Nietzsche, etc., people tried to kill him. So when I look at things like the black pill on one end, I'm like, well, this is just feeding into unnecessary shit. You're black pill. I think there's a difference between being black pilled and then just being understanding the harsh reality of things. Like somebody who is black pilled can say they're black pilled all they want to sound cool, but they've never had to endure or go through prison. They've never murdered someone. They've never survived sexual assault. Most people who are black pilled. But it's this internet fad of things, you know, that people kind of say to say, well, I'm black pilled. I mean, the idea itself is it's prescripted. You know, it's fake. You know, it's at the very minimum. These are the same people who say they hate the pharmaceutical or I'm red pilled. Now, again, I don't hate everybody who is red or black pilled because those can be very effective. Okay, you're red pilled. You want the red pill rage. What does that look like in the gym? What does a truly broken, fucked up person look like in the gym? And again, that sounds cool. That sounds interesting, but I think that's just a fantasy for most people. I live that fantasy when I get that, fucked up in the gym and I start going, ape shit or losing my shit, getting manic. And I'm saying that's not a life most people want, but it's also kind of all I really can do because the gym originally it was a place where people were aggressive, but they actually were really aggressive. They weren't just acting that way. They weren't just feeling that way. They trained that way. They exercised that way. Now you have yoga classes in the fucking gym studio. You have women going in the fucking gym studio. And it's not that they're women, but the fact that they're not training or doing anything at a very, not just intense, but even, they're not even satisfied with how they're training because they're not even really training, most of them. Most men aren't. So it's kind of this, again, environment that's become pussified and a safe space when it used to be a place where people had real demons, you know. And now people in the modern day would see me as a psychopath, and maybe I am in some ways, but only because I understand the level of intensity it is required to become something that I am truly happy with, or at least that I can live with and literally live with. Because if you know how horrible things are in society, I mean, don't get me wrong, we don't, not everything is. I'm talking about just society. I'm not talking about how easy we have it in America. I'm not talking about access to food. Okay, I'm not even financially. I'm not saying it's great, but it's still pretty good compared to a lot of us. So I'm not saying everything. Okay, if you refuse to do some extra form of school or do an extra certification to get more money, that's on you, bitch. If you, so I don't want to confuse it. Okay, and say stuff like that. If you refuse to work hard for at least a few years in a starting job, that's on you, bitch. Okay? When men bitch about shit like that, I can't stand that shit. Now, I do understand what some men are saying when they say, hey, there's women in the workplace always trying to hit on me. And I don't think this is all women. I don't. I think, unfortunately, as much as I hate to say it, lower value women tend to be in the workplace because higher value women, based on looks alone, get a lot more free shit. So even if they do have to work, they don't have to work as much. So I think the workplace has made it easier for lower value women to harass men because most of the time it's not men harassing women, it's literally women trying so hard to get men's attention, to be up their ass. Women just want to be left the fuck alone and process shit because they need time to, and they can't. And that's why I always look for jobs where I am alone, where I don't have people up my ass, and I just do what I'm supposed to do and get it done. So I will say, the workplace has that, yes. You can go to the gym, you can find that. You can pretty much find it everywhere you go. And if you want to reduce the amount of that BS, you have to simply become a night owl, train at night, Find that's what I've done. Because when I see these people on TikTok, all this hi Harry, all this shallow shit, I'm like, wow, that is so fucking uninteresting and boring and unimaginative. And some people say I'm just drained and exhausted. Me, I get manic when I see shit like that. I don't care what gender you are. And I think women have been able to get away with it a lot more because I think most people are this way, but I think women have gotten away with it because they've been allowed to. I think most people, if they had the choice, would actually degrade into shit, male or female. And that's why I don't feel bad for a lot of the men either. Because a lot of them are just in the way as well. And also competition. Or trying to be. Keyword trying to be. So, I have to look at it and think I'm not these black pillars. Just they may say points I sympathize with, but they are not me. Because the minute someone says something like, I agree with this psyop, that psyop, okay, you're making money. Or at the very minimum, you're doing something because you think it benefits you. Now, with how much information is on the internet today, you have to know at some level people like Sneeko or a Pred or Andrew Tate is of a religion that is that way, you know, very much. It's not Satanism where it's like, well, what sect of Satanism, what interpretation? Because Satanism is not secular like Christianity. No, this is the Quran, fuckers. So, when I see stuff like that, it's a contradiction. You want to preserve your race, maintain your culture, civilization. You don't like women because you feel like they're treacherous, this, that. But then you turn around and you promote people like Sneeko, who's a groomer, Andrew Tate, who believes in a pedophilic religion that is also very much invading the West and normalizing Islam. Like, how much more fucking obvious can it be that that is a psyop? And they know what they're doing. These channels aren't pushed up your ass, so you have to see them, at least in your recommendations, by coincidence. These people don't get thousands, hundreds of thousands of views fueling their fucking pity parties by coincidence. And I say pity parties because they're not doing much to change it. Again, this isn't an attack on the alt right, but this is me saying that a lot of the versions of the alt right that get popular or accepted tend to be grifter controlled. It doesn't matter if they're claiming to want to protect your goth subculture, like if they're Jake Monroe, which I've been in a server. By the way, a lot of them act nothing like they do on YouTube. A lot of the women there just look like they're misandrous waiting to get the jump on him and that joined his server because they didn't like him but wanted to see what he's all about. And that's another thing I want to say. And I think we all have done this. Sometimes we hate things so much we start to fixate on the things we hate. And if we fixate on the things we hate too much, we start to become more tolerant of that behavior that we're trying to destroy, right? If you want to become the very thing you hate, it's very simple. Don't just hate it, fixate on it and expand. Study it, learn it, but don't make it the core center of your life. Always recenter yourself, always go back to what you want to do once you've studied the information. Don't keep dwelling on it to the extent that it consumes, because at that point, you've created a relationship with the thing you hate. And so when I look at a lot of these men who say this and that about women, I'm like, well, you're talking about them constantly. And I don't mean like making a stream trying to reflect. I'm not talking about observations. I'm talking about channels like Dad Mode and Dark Mode, Jake Monroe, etc., where it's like they're constantly talking about women. And they're kind of just normalizing and conditioning themselves to accept the very thing they don't like by doing that. Because if your solution isn't this person is so bad they need to die, oh my fucking God, then you're letting them live, you're creating leeway. And in my opinion, you're not building up a philosophy that's going to purge the thing you hate. If they're that bad, just say it. No balls, you won't, pussy. Exactly. And it's not me trying to say, hey, go out and hunt all these people, but I am saying, like, hey, these people aren't, stop talking about it and, do something, is what I'm saying. Or train, ready yourself. And this isn't me putting all women in a fucking bracket saying, like, hey, you have a septum nose ring or you die. Like most people who do that, I don't want to say all of them. A lot of them are cunts. Just straight up. I don't hate somebody because they dye their hair or get a septum though. And I don't use that visualization as a way to discriminate them. But when they're doing it and are low value in many other areas of life, then obviously there's a synchronicity. So I'm just saying very simply, if you're going to talk and fixate about these things and they're really an enemy, right? Because come on now. If you really have an issue with this, you should hate these people and these people should be your enemy, right? No. Then what the fuck are you doing on the internet just talking about it? Like, okay, you're a man, you want man's rights act, you're a man's rights activist. I don't know. On one end, I think, yes, be constructive, expose what you need to expose, discuss it, but also in the meantime, still practice your masculinity. More importantly, be masculine and just go lift some heavy shit and toughen yourself the fuck up. Because if you're really serious, right, if you really think America's cooked, the end of Western civilization, right? Oh, it's so. Then what are you doing to fight that system collapsing on your head? Is what I would ask these people. Most of you men are sipping on your fucking lattes, you know? And then you're going on the internet and you're saying, pity me, boo hoo, boo hoo. Like, you're not ready, dude. I get concussions. I've torn my hands. I've fucking bruised my hands, almost my entire fucking, the front side of my entire fucking hand, knuckles, chipped fingers, fucking chipped my elbows, run with 100 pounds, sprinted with 350 for a few yards. Like, I do all this shit to be superhuman, and I don't seem to find anybody that I give a shit about who can complement that lifestyle. I just wish the goth culture was still what it was in the early 2000s, because surely some desirable woman has to see that and be like, damn, someone that is into the stuff I'm into. I dress that way in the gym. So I understand what it's like to be discriminated or stared at constantly for what you wear. Not it's not that you're being noticed. Everyone wants to be noticed and everybody wants someone's attention. Okay, this isn't like, oh, women want attention. Bullshit, men do too. That's why a lot of them wear tank tops and all that gay shit. So it's not that people want attention or want to be noticed, but that they are so intrusive about it when they continue to stare and you clearly don't want them. And that's most men and women. And I'm going to add men to that list because, yes, on one side of it, yes, women, do dress a certain way for attention. Yes, they do. And men should stop staring so much. Not because they're doing it and they want them to, but don't stare at them because actually, why would you? Because if, because until they can show exclusive interest, fuck what they wear. Someone who wants to be exclusively liked by someone exclusively should exclusively portray that, and they don't. So, again, I've been black pilled, for many years. Now I've just become a Satanist. Now I've just gone manic and went off the rails completely. And I've just stopped giving a shit altogether. I know what I want, but I don't see that in the majority of society. And yeah, I'll admit, I am pissed about it. But it's not like I'm not doing more every day to become more of the person I want to be, to attract what I want to attract. And I can at least say that. I can't say, that I didn't train to the death till almost passing out. Okay, death is a little bit of exaggeration, but I can't say, that I didn't train till I almost passed out. I can't say that I didn't try. You know what I mean? At least be able to say that. And I don't just mean try, I mean really like go fucking nuts. Enjoy it too. Enjoy that. People say life's like a video game. I'm like, you have no idea. You haven't gone to the gym high on pre-workout in your band merch, blasting stuff in your ears while filming yourself on another phone. That is living life in the VR, in the game mode. When people say like life is a video game, and I'm like, yeah, it's a really fucked up video game. Absolutely, it really is. It's extremely fucked up. But until you can do things that are exceptional in this simulation, video game realm, matrix, existence, reality, whatever you want to call it, who are you to really say life is a video game? Or if you're going to say this stuff about women, it's like, well, who are you to say that? Maybe you do want a bitchy person. Like attracts like, bitchy men attract bitchy women, but they can't stand each other. Okay, well, that's a self problem. Again, no one's perfect, but you have to look at these channels and think, when guy pretending to care about men's rights who's black pilled attracts feminist who's moderately feminist, what does that say about you? Another thing, you cannot be telling other men about men's rights when you're in your fucking 40s playing Fortnite. I'm sorry, but no, fuck that shit. You got men who are like making all these massive claims, or not even massive claims, but these, opinionated claims, or these true claims, but they're sentimental about it. I'll say that, sentiment. But then they're playing shit made for kids, and I'm like, I'm not a genius here, but it doesn't take a genius to figure out like how that is a contradiction. And I don't know. In my case, it's like, am I a contradiction? Well, because again, I have to always be brutal with myself and self-reflection. I think I have gone nuts. I don't think I want a life that is considered sane to most people. I've accepted that, but I can't argue with the results that that mindset attains, at least for like I don't want to use the word bodybuilding, but for, physical goals. I can't deny the results and say that, hey, anyone who is super strong is totally sane. No, I don't know. I think sane people, quote unquote, are kind of boring. More importantly, I think they're hypocrites who are lying in self denial. I think there's a lot of self denial. I think everyone's fucking nuts in some way. So I don't know. To me, I mean, I do know, but I'm not fully sure here. And we're never always going to be fully sure, right? But that's just it. We have to go even when we don't think we can. We have to see what we're made of. That's the whole point, right? Um, so when it comes to quote unquote sane, insane people, I think everyone is insane, just hasn't realized it yet. I think everyone has a side of them that is, you know, it can be a matter of perspective, you know. I definitely haven't made it, but there's a lot of things I'm noticing at a really early age that a lot of others aren't. And I guess I'd say I'm very confused with how self-loathing got normalized. Have men really become bitches, including the men who say they're against bitches? Have they become? Yes, I'm afraid so. I'm afraid so. And they are what they attract, I guess. I don't know. I don't know if I attract these types of people. I just don't trust anyone now at all. Because, I mean, it doesn't take a genius to say, hey, if you try to manipulate me more than a few times or make a narrative against me because you misunderstood me, well, basically, this is how I think with most people. The minute you misunderstand me and you continue to, and you make and believe in narratives that are fueled against me because of that, either that, which I almost never forgive, ever, because most of the people who misunderstand me don't even have a strong foundation of their own or any awareness of their own lives usually. So either there's that and those types of people I never forgive. You can do that once and fucking you fucked up with me for life. Especially if you're a modern woman who associates with boring generic men and you keep looking at me. No, you're just waiting to fuck me over. To bring me down to their level. That's how I look at you. If you do that. So misunderstanding me even once when it's on really core stuff like the sky is blue, like obvious stuff, that's a fuck off and die forever from me. That's a I hope you drown in bleach, like level of hate. The other thing a person can do that would make me hate them forever. If I'm training really hard and I'm proud of myself and someone tries to ruin my ego and shit on me, especially if this comes from a stuck up bitch, she can have her head rammed into concrete before it hardens and it can dry up and she can sit there till her body withers away into dust for all I care. Because I know for a fact those bitches haven't seen anything harder than what I do. I'm not unattractive. I'm not perfect, but I'm definitely not unattractive and I'm pretty strong. And if I do things that even impress myself, me being a hard person to impress, and someone does that shit to me, they can die. Straight up. I do not care. I do not care. Because those same types of people spend their whole lives trying to flirt with men, date men, just to ruin them psychologically and create more PTSD. I do not sympathize with people who I think consciously or unconsciously are trying to make and give others PTSD. I do not sympathize with people like that. If I think for a second someone is trying to give you PTSD and create that, I've already made up my mind about that person. I probably want them dead. We have enough PTSD in the world. I am a manic person as it is. But even if you're not intentionally doing so, I think in this modern world, a lot of people are very, what's the word? They could really, there are things they could fix and work on, but never do. And so If somebody isn't doing that in 2026, even if they're not intentionally trying to give someone PTSD, that level of carelessness is so unfucking forgivable. Some men say things like, I just ignore women now. I just like it's a trophy or like it's a badge of honor. Me, I'm way past ignoring certain types of. I'm like, no, I just, people like that bad. And again, I'm not saying this is all women, but I don't know. I don't know. But regardless, anyone who's like that, I just want dead completely. Come fucking completely. Because I understand and care more about cause, effect, outcome, pretty simple stuff, right? Making things practical than I do about how safe something feels. Unless the outcome is against me and going to fuck me over, then I care. But otherwise, I do not care. If that's what must be sacrificed to get that outcome, then I will do so. But do think there are bigger, larger issues than these petty things. These are just small scale things I notice. I think there are much larger scale issues than these things discussed here. I think there are larger issues with just reality right now. But most people will never even get to that. They'll live their whole life and they'll be living in that small world of the manosphere versus, and that's it. And I'm not discarding that. I'm not ignoring that or saying that isn't a huge problem too. But there are much bigger things going on right now than this televised version of Battle of the Sexes that has kind of been adapted by shitty remakes that we call the manosphere and feminism, is more so what I'm saying here. I would also emphasize this modern system has created a world that protects pussified men, and I want to describe that. I'm not calling a man pussified because he's gay. I'm not even doing that, no. Or because he wears makeup. To me, a pussified man is a man who does not have the ability to kill for what he believes in, especially when he needs to for self defense, or somebody who just sounds like an obnoxious cunt. Now, there's an exception. If this said man is trying to be trans, that's one thing, because the amount of men actually trying to be is very low in fraction. It's such a small fraction that it's not an actual concern. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about the average person here. They're not trying to sound like a girl, they just do. They're not trying to be a bitch, they just are. And there's a lot of these types of men. And these are types of men are the ones who are the majority of pussified men and are the ones who are making all these claims, who are being given a voice to basically just act like bitches, then say they hate bitches. This isn't this type of man thinks he's Batman, but has absolutely no qualities even remotely close or similar to Batman in any way, shape, or fucking form. This type of man thinks he's a virtue signaling justice. These types of men actually, some of them literally sound like women. Literally sound undeveloped as fuck. Look inbred. Now I could go on and on, but I don't need to. Okay. That is what I am talking about. And even if they don't look inbred, even if they look conventionally attractive, something's just not adding up. I kind of believe, I tend to believe that if you're a man, you should be hyper masculine. If you're a woman, you should be hyper feminine. And if you want, once you're hyper feminine or hyper masculine, if you want to be hyper of the opposite sex in traits, that's fine as long as it's practical or works. As long as you're doing what you biologically are supposed to, unless you're trans. But for the majority of people, they're not choosing to be so. I'm purely looking at just the main two sexes here. You say you're a man, okay. What can do? You say you're a woman, okay. Same thing. And I don't mean this to say because you're a man, you should do this or that. Because you're a woman, you should do that or that. But I am saying, generally speaking, there's something that's got to be turned up in your life that's like, okay, that is hyper masculine or hyper feminine. I believe in being hyper masculine or hyper feminine once you choose to identify with the thing you are at birth, which you will most likely choose anyway. If you don't, then fine. I don't really give a shit. It's a small amount of the population, it's super tiny. If that becomes a large issue where everyone is that way, then we have an issue where procreation stops, sure. But that's not what I'm talking about. I am talking about your average person should have some emphasis on doing this in an authentic way. And it should be something that they will live and die for. It's that simple. If you don't have anything that you live or die for, you are a complete sellout, complete pussy, and you do not stop existing at that point, is what I'd say to people like that. And unfortunately, with Gen Z and even a lot of Gen X and even the boomers, they don't really have anything that actually live and die for. They have things they pretend to, they have things that they serve, yes. They can provide, yes. But a lot of them, when you actually get down to real values about things that are really affecting the world, they don't give a shit. They care about the news and that's it. That's it. That's fucking sad, but that's the truth. They care about social media and that's it. They never question these things. They never deviate. They never think, what else? No. I'm not saying this is somebody who's bitter and black pilled. I'm saying this is somebody who is trained to extremes that most people couldn't even imagine. That's who this is coming from when I say things like this. Right now, I'm not just talking, I'm actually filming this thing for a film that I'm going to make from a video. It's cool as fuck. Anyways, I'm also going to go later to the gym. But, yeah. So I think what needs to happen is either the manosphere community needs to embrace spirituality and go back to paganism in an authentic way. I hate to say this, but the more popular something becomes, the more hoard out it's going to be, no matter what it is. It's the harsh truth. So, I don't know. The tone of my voice now is probably one of disappointment, extreme disappointment, kind of disgust. But most people in day to day life, they sound like they're whiny or everything's positive, everything's happy. It's one of those two. But yeah, those are kind of my thoughts on the manosphere now and the alt right.